supernatural visitors interact with lottery winners in the Utah desert. And now, from the Dark Matters collection, I present to you Moab. Chapter 1, Dr. Goodwin. The renowned British historian Dr. Mary Goodwin was more than ready when she received the news. She would soon be joining an international team of carefully vetted scientists, IT engineers, and top military personnel selected to monitor and record the third-year portal transmissions. Mary's recently published New York Times bestseller, Moab, documented the past 2 years of portal exchanges in extraordinary detail. Beyond Mary's historical analysis, it was her interviews with lottery winners that drove her book's meteoric success. And now, in the desert of southeast Utah, she was about to become a part of history in the making. Living and working in the newly completed UN containment dome would prove to be an unexpectedly brief but life-changing experience for every member of the team. Chapter 2, The Backstory. The concept of interconnected video portals was conceived by Lithuanian artist Benediktas Gilis. The Vilnius Lublin portal he completed in the spring of 2021 provided an unfiltered, real-time video connection between the two cities. The two large circular screens allow passers-by to wave and gesture informally as if they were just a few feet apart instead of hundreds of kilometers. The New York City to Dublin portal came online in the spring of 2024, but was beset by behavioral issues. Later that year, the Philadelphia portal was opened, switching every 5 minutes between the Vilnius, Lublin, and Dublin portals. This rotating connection between countries began to fulfill Benediktas Gilis' dream of creating a series of worldwide bridges between cultures. What followed less than 2 years later was nothing that Mary Goodwin or anyone else could have ever dreamed of. Chapter 3, The Delicate Arch. The video screen towered 46 feet high and 32 feet wide and was encased by the largest freestanding natural stone arch in the world. The sudden appearance of what became known as the Moab portal was almost impossible to make sense of. And so began a 2-year period of daily anticipation followed by daily spectacles that stirred the full range of human emotions across the globe. The Delicate Arch in Utah's Arches National Park had been one of the most celebrated geologic formations on Earth, and in just a few days, it became the single greatest attraction the world has ever known. At first, the National Park Service was unable to contain the hordes that descended on this otherworldly video conference screen. The insatiable public demand led to an international lottery system which limited in-person visits, allowing only 12 winners per 12-hour session. Continuous live streaming allowed billions to indirectly watch the most incredible series of video images ever telecast. The Moab portal switched locations every hour and offered a true video conference connection, providing real-time conversations. But what made the Moab portal just so compelling, so historically significant yet ultimately terrifying, was that each and every day, viewers were presented with 24 different locations on the timeline of human history. The random nature of these supernatural connections added an element of suspense and surprise to daily viewing. Lottery winners were permitted to converse freely with anachronists, as the video visitors from past became known. Any attempt to alter history during exchanges with them was strictly prohibited. Mary was one of the many area specialists who were assigned to supervise and support each group of lottery winners. She was also tasked with developing trust and cooperation between anachronists and lottery winners. The accounts of her 4 12-hour shifts would become some of the most compelling chapters in Moab. Chapter 4, The Good. Over the course of the first year, humans everywhere were enthralled by interactions across the ages with the complete spectrum of humanity. Language translations were in real time. Dates and locations appeared in the corners of the screen. Connections varied from the mundane and ordinary to the famous and extraordinary. The reactions from most anachronists morphed from initial fear, disbelief, and caution to acceptance, engagement, and even enjoyment. The conversations that ensued never failed to astound. People from settlements, tribes, ancient civilizations, dynasties, empires, and beyond interacted with the 21st century on a daily basis. Mary Goodwin's 12 sessions were a historian's dream come true. She and her group had many enjoyable and enlightening contacts with the everyday anachronists. Neanderthal families, Mesopotamian farmers, Egyptian merchants, Greek artisans, Apache hunters, Viking shipbuilders, Roman politicians, pilgrims on Thanksgiving, and others made up a fascinating cross-section of our human ancestry. Billions of people around the world watched with even greater anticipation when lottery winners began a long-running series of sessions with many of the most famous figures in world history. Hundreds of encounters with the likes of Socrates, Cleopatra, Confucius, Newton, Buddha, Shackleton, Rosa Parks, Oppenheimer, Mandela, Sitting Bull, Hannibal, Elvis, Da Vinci, Catherine the Great, Homer, Gutenberg, Muhammad, Einstein, and many other influential and important anachronists. Hourly connections of pure wonderment, courtesy of the mystical Moab portal. Mary spent 12 hours with some of history's greats. Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel, Washington camped on the Delaware, Faraday in his workshop, Magellan departing from Spain, Gandhi at the Champaran agitation in Bihar, Harriet Tubman at the raid of Combahee, Darwin in the Galapagos, Lewis Clark and Sacagawea on the Columbia River, Mozart at 14 on his second European tour. Her group's conversations with Jesus and the apostles at the Last Supper became a viral YouTube video with over 120 billion views. Her group's last session was with a thankful President Lincoln. The Civil War had just ended, and Abe was in good spirits as he was preparing for a big night out at Ford's Theater. After a memorable hour, Lincoln scrunched his brow. "Dr. Goodwin, I've thoroughly enjoyed our time together, yet a heavy heart seems to weigh upon you. Is there something that troubles you?" As Mary shook her head, the silence was shattered. "Abe, no, don't go." The disruptive guest was ball-gagged and hustled out by security. her arms still flailing, a warning that was met only by Lincoln's puzzled look and shrug of his lanky shoulders. Chapter 5, The Bad and the Ugly. The second year presented a much different view of human history. Video visits featured dark and odious scenes, exchanges so unsettling and appalling that lottery winners were often left with permanent psychological damage. Video conferencing connections varied from the everyday underbelly of societies to the most infamous, sordid, ghastly, violent, cruel, and evil acts against humanity reviewed throughout the ages and from nearly every corner of the globe. Anachronists often displayed threatening, intimidating, and even terrifying behaviors. It was a deeply disturbing and violent year, yet online streaming records were set by a world that simply could not look away. The first series of 12 hour-long encounters left Mary traumatized and nearly broken. She came face to face with the ruthless and the wicked, lynch mobs, domestic abusers, gang members, drug cartels, serial rapists, animal abusers, child pornographers, mobsters, slave traders, mass shooters, terrorists, and torturers. Nightmares, sleep paralysis, and night terrors plagued her long after. In her fourth and final 12-hour shift, Mary and her group encountered some of history's most infamous evildoers. Dr. Joseph Mengele experimenting in Auschwitz. Dylan Roof locked and loaded at a Bible study in Charleston. Jack the Ripper in a dark and bloody London back alley. McVeigh and Nichols filling steel drums with diesel fuel and fertilizer. Charles Henry Sampson with his guillotine hard at work. And Dahmer at the dinner table. When the last of the sessions began, the world's greatest conqueror immediately locked eyes with Mary Goodwin. His leering stare chilled her to the bone. Genghis Khan then taunted her with explicit carnal desires. He beckoned to her, flashing his exposed weapon of choice. Then he mocked her as dry heaves shuddered through her body. The group recoiled when his larger-than-life arm plunged through the space-time continuum. Khan grabbed at her, roaring maliciously as her heaving body collapsed in terror. The chaos that ensued between lottery winners and Genghis Khan and his Mongol chieftains became epic viewing. The Goodwin rule was established to keep all visitors to the Moab portal at a safe distance, or to prevent any attempt to physically enter the past. Chapter 6, The Shutdown. Control and enforcement were problematic throughout the first 2 Moab portal years. Attempts to alter human history grew more frequent, and arrests followed. The brave souls who desperately tried to talk Adam Lanza off his psychopathic ledge were properly exonerated by the international tribunal that oversaw portal exchanges. It all came to an end when the United Nations was forced to commandeer Arches National Park, when historical transmissions began to threaten the world order with sensitive state secrets. Heavily guarded perimeter fencing kept the curious at bay. Squadrons of infrared attack drones scoured the landscape round the clock. Violators were shot on sight. An enormous lead-lined steel and concrete containment dome enclosed the Moab portal. Top secret clearance was mandatory for the small international team of experts who would live and work there, including Dr. Mary Goodwin. Chapter 7, We, the Unwitting. Several weeks into the third year, the Moab portal suddenly went dark for 24 hours. The team was caught off guard when the countdown timer expired, and a well-dressed, clean-cut, middle-aged man appeared on the massive screen. He addressed them in English, but with oddly stilted syntax. "Greetings. We think you enjoyed the first year of portal exchanges. It was no doubt an exhilarating look back at yourselves in history and what we had hoped for. The second year of transmissions, however, told the real tale. I will intend to make this brief and to my point. You have been part of an ambitious, intergalactic experiment, and the results have left us rather disillusioned. We chose your planet for its abundant resources, superb geology, atmospheric chemistry, vast hydrology, and proper temperature regimes for a complete three-phase water cycle. We had to significantly increase your planet's axial tilt so as to enhance your climate variability to match that of other planets in our experiment. We planted the molecular seeds of life and directed the asteroid impact so as to greatly accelerate our goal of mammalian domination. Over the millennia, we tweaked their genetics so as to ensure the most advanced primate life forms would be made in our image. Look at us. Please admit the resemblance is uncanny, yet no mere coincidence. But we are nothing like the gods you made, the ones you pray to, and the ones you go to war for. Most importantly, we inspired a level of brain development that would be sure to discover complex language, religion, culture, music, art, government, industries, and what you believe to be advanced technologies. Yes, the very same intelligent biological design that many of you scoffed at. Beyond that, we implored ourselves to not interfere, yet we did have some lapses. However, we are certain that none of the early stone structures we built had any effect on the experimental outcome I am here to discuss. Chapter 8, Admonishment. We have spent well over 10,000 Earth years monitoring your response to the one variable that we manipulated in our experiment. Unfortunately, you have disproved our hypothesis. The apparent default mode of your species is not one to be proud of. Over the course of your relatively brief history, you have murdered, executed, maimed, tortured, raped, enslaved, and oppressed countless billions of your fellow humans. Atrocities and acts of grave depravity litter your past. You have wasted endless resources building weapons of war and mass destruction, all at an unimaginable cost. And many of you have mistreated your fellow animals, oblivious to their sentient nature. With all due respect, interjected Dr. Goodwin, your analysis of human nature excludes our best qualities. Did you not observe altruism, compassion, and love? Can I ask you, Dr. Goodwin, why you think such qualities supersede the preponderance of violence, cruelty, and wickedness that we have displayed? How could you ignore the look back on your history and believe that compassion has conquered greed, that love has conquered hate? As an historian, have you not documented how the alpha males of your species who wielded great power, more often than not, chose to abuse it for personal gain? Dr. Mary Goodwin looked away from the portal screen, unable to respond. Chapter 9, The Meaning of Life. The good news for us is that the implementation of our standard experiment termination plan is unnecessary. The reason will have been evident when viewing our next series of time transmissions from your approaching future. Your human race will be saving us the effort to complete the ecological purge we require for planetary reassignment. By now, you must have been questioning yourselves about the variable, wondering, I think, just what we manipulated in our experiment. The heads of all team members nodded affirmatively, awestruck by what they were hearing. One of the scientists finally spoke up. What was it? The extraterrestrial answered the question without emotion. Free will. The utopia we hypothesized that free will would produce has been lost to a darkness we did not anticipate. For the countless millions of earthlings who have futilely pondered the meaning of life over the millennia, well, now you can know. You are nothing more than a failed experiment. And the screen went dark again. Chapter 10, Free Will Unleashed. 24 hours later, the first video feed from the future appeared. Mary gasped, "My God, he was right." Right? Who? Who was right? Oppenheimer. Huh? We have become death, destroyer of worlds. The team watched in horror as there would be no interacting with the smoldering carbon shadows that covered the sidewalks of what had been New York City and all the other locations that followed. Their horror turned to shock, then complete numbness when their attention was suddenly redirected. Jesus Christ, look, lower left, the date stamp. No, it can't be. May God have mercy on our souls. We'll know soon enough, said Mary Goodwin. Thank you for listening to Moab from the Dark Matters collection.